Hello, welcome back to the channel, and this is a channel where we give you reviews, playthroughs, unboxings. We generally like to talk a load of bollocks. Tabletop gaming in general, and in this video we're going to be talking about a pirate themed social deduction game. We are going to be talking about Feed the Kraken, and in this game you'll be joining one of three factions. You'll be trying to steer your pirate ship towards your faction's destination in the hope that you could be the first to get there and win the game. So in this video we're going to be giving you a very brief overview of the rules. We'll be telling you what we do like, we don't like. Then we'll come back and we'll tell you whether or not Feed the Kraken is worth your time and bother today and in the future. So remember, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to this channel, hit the like button, all that YouTube bullshit. See you after this. Bollocks. So, Feed the Kraken. How'd you play this game? So, Feed the Kraken is a social deduction game with a pirate theme. It plays from 5 to 11 players. Yeah, I shit you not, 11 players, right? And when you start this game, you will be given one of three factions. You might be a sailor, in which case to win the game, you'll have to navigate the ship towards Blue Water Bay in the east. You might be a pirate, in which case you'll have to navigate the ship to Crimson Cove in the west. Or you might be a cult leader, in which case you'll have to navigate the ship to the north and end up on the giant Kraken spot. Or you can go to one of the Kraken tiles, and so long as the cult leader is sacrificed there, then they will win the game as well, right? So each player will also receive a special role card. If you are given the captain card, you will announce that you're the captain and draw another card. Every player will look at their role card and put it face down, yeah? You'll also get 3 guns, and these will be used to instigate mutinies. So the captain will also be given the lieutenant and the navigator tokens, and then the first thing they'll do, they will give these tokens to 2 of the other players. These tokens are important because the navigator will be the one choosing the final card, which dictates which way the ship will move, and the lieutenant will be choosing one of 2 cards that will go into the box that the navigator will choose, right? So once the captain's done this, all the players will take their guns into their hand. They put them under the table. They'll choose a number of guns to contribute to the mutiny, and they'll put their fist out into the center of the table and they will say yo ho ho, and everyone will reveal their guns, right? Dependent on the number of players, so if you're playing with say 7 players, if there's 3 or more guns in the mutiny, then the mutiny succeeds, and then the player that played the most guns will become the new captain, and then you'll have a subsequent mutiny, and you'll keep doing this until no mutiny occurs, and then the captain question is settled and the other 2 players become the navigator and the lieutenant, right? So the next thing that will happen, the captain will draw 2 cards. They'll look at them, choose one, dump one in the sea, and then the lieutenant will draw 2 cards. They'll choose one and dump one in the sea. The 2 cards will be put into the captain's log box. It will be given to the navigator. The navigator will shuffle the cards inside the box, and then they'll look at them, choose one and dump one in the sea, and then hand the captain's log back to the captain with the solitary remaining card in it. Captain will then open the captain's log and then will announce to the crew which way the ship is moving. You'll see that on the board there is a red, a yellow and blue arrow, and the ship will move into the space dictated by the card. So you'll see that there's a number of tiles on the board. If you move into one of these tiles, then something will happen. You might move onto the cabin search tile, and this means that the captain will choose a player. All other players will close their eyes. The chosen player will have to reveal their hidden role to the captain, yeah? You might move on to the off with the tongue tile, and this means that the captain will choose a player, and this player will no longer be able to talk for the rest of the game. And they can no longer become the captain. They still have the added benefit of being able to make sounds and gesticulate. And then there's the flogging tile. Captain chooses another player. They'll take the 3 flogging tiles. They'll shuffle them up, and they will pick the card that matches the faction that they belong to, and they'll put it face down in a discard pile, right? They will then choose one of the 2 remaining cards, and they will put it face up on top of the I am not card, and this will tell everybody one of the factions that this player doesn't belong to, right? So a little bit of added information. And then finally there is the Kraken tile, and the captain chooses another player to feed to the Kraken, and if they choose a cult leader, then the cult leader and any cultists that have been converted, they win the game by doing this. So you've got to be very careful, right? So next thing you're going to do, you'll look at the navigation card and you see there's an icon on the card. If it's got the broken beer bottles, then the captain will change. You'll go in a clockwise direction and give the captain card to the player that has the least amount of navigation cards in front of them. If there's a mermaid on the card, then captain chooses another player. That player shuffles the last 3 discarded navigation cards and secretly looks at them, and then they can talk about their findings, and the rulebook recommends that you do that, right? So listen to the fucking rulebook. You might end up resolving the telescope icon, and this means that the captain chooses another player. That player looks at the top navigation card. They can put the card back on the draw pile or discard it into the sea. You might have the armed or the disarmed icon, and this means that the navigator receives one gun, or the navigator must discard one gun. Or you might have the cult uprising, in which case the captain will draw a random card from the cultist deck. Yeah, you might draw the cult's gun stash, and this is where everyone closes their eyes and the cult leader will distribute a number of guns to any of the other players. Or you might have the cult cabin search, and everyone closes their eyes and the cult leader will get to see the captain, the lieutenant, and the navigator's faction cards, right? Or you might have the conversion to a cult. What happens in this, everyone closes their eyes, they put their hand out into the center of the table, and then the cult leader will touch somebody's hand, and then they will be converted into a cultist, right? And they will win if the cult leader sacrifices themselves, or if they get to the Kraken tile at the top of the board. So once you've done this, you'll start a new round. The only thing that changes is that the players that were the navigator and the lieutenant will be off duty, which means they can't be chosen in a subsequent round. And then you'll start a new round. You'll keep doing this until one of the victory conditions is met, and then that faction will be the winner of Feed the Kraken. So what do we like but Feed the Kraken? So the first thing that we really like about this game is it takes all the best bits from all of its predecessors like Resistance, Battlestar Galactica, Shadows over Camelot, and it melds them into an innovative package, right? You could sort of smell the scent of other games in this, but it does more than enough to have its own identity. So whilst there is sort of like a nod to other games, this game stands on its own 2 feet. And if you think about other games like Resistance, Saboteur, Lifeboats and all that sort of thing, these games were sort of like very small card games, yeah. And if you go to the opposite end of the spectrum, if you go to games like Battlestar Galactica, they were full-blown 4-hour board games, yeah. And this one sort of sits in the middle. It takes the light rule set from the smaller games and stops sort of halfway between becoming a Battlestar Galactica snorefest, yeah. So yeah, we really do like the fact that whilst there's some familiarity in this game, it still feels like a new, fresh approach to what was otherwise a tired old genre. So the second thing that we really like about this is it plays up to 11 players, right? At the end of April every year, regardless of whether Will Wheaton is still alive or not, we still celebrate Tabletop Day on the last Saturday of April, and we have large groups every year turn up for that, and I'm quite tempted to get this one out, right? Because not only does it play up to 11 players, but it's also got a double-sided board. You've got the short game and the long game, right? If you haven't got sort of 2 hours to play this, you can use the short board and get this done in about an hour. And the fact that it scales well, play this with 5 players on the short board for a condensed game, or you could play it on the long board with 5 players for a longer game, or you could just have complete chaos and play the 11-player game on the short board, right? So the fact that it scales well and it plays up to 11 players is super duper. So the final thing that we really like about Feed the Kraken is there's just enough hidden information in this game to keep a level of suspense, to keep you on the edge of your seat. And the fact that as the game progresses, more information is revealed at exactly the right time means that you're going to be changing the way that you think about other people's actions. Like we played this the other day, and I was convinced that my mate was a cult leader, right? His actions kept on telling me that he was a cult leader, and it turned out that he was on the same team as me. And I only really started to trust him towards the end of the game because different information was revealed about the cultists at exactly the right time, yeah? So whilst this game might just look like drawing a few cards, moving a boat on a board, there's this sort of meta game going on where you constantly be re-evaluating the assumptions that you made in previous rounds, and that is what makes this game special. So what don't we like about Feed the Kraken? So the first thing that we don't like about it is there might be a rare case of maybe somebody sitting there with nothing to do. And whilst it doesn't happen every game, if you're playing with a large group, say you're playing with 11 players, then there's only going to be 3 roles that are going to be changing hands throughout the game, yeah? And the more players you got, the more chance you got of somebody not being picked for any of those roles, mainly because they got a face that looks like a slapped ass. There's a small chance that you might just be sitting there and you'll never see the captain card, you'll never get to choose any of the navigation cards. You're not a cultist, you're just a lowly sailor, and you'll just be sitting there trying to plait your pubes into a coil of rope. But this is rare, remember, doesn't happen every single day. Not plaiting your pubes, like not getting a roll card. Oh, shut up. So the second thing that we don't like about Feed the Kraken is some of the things you've got to do in this game are tricky to implement. You know, in previous games, when you're playing Ultimate Werewolf, you've got to sort of tap the table, or everyone's got to put their fingers in their ears to hum so that you don't know who's doing what at a certain amount of time. That problem has been transferred into this game, right? Especially the one where the cultist has to give guns to people. You're going to know where the cultist is sitting, and if you're sitting on a rectangular table, you're not going to be able to reach over and distribute the guns in the manner player that you want, right? So again, you're just going to have to stick your fingers in your ears, hum a Wilson Phillips tune in your head and count to 10, and then that's the only way you could do it, yeah, because otherwise the game falls apart. So the final thing that we don't like about this game is it can be very difficult for the pirates to win the game, right? If you're talking about a 7-player game, you're going to have 4 sailors, you're going to have only 2 pirates, and then you're going to have a cultist. So essentially it is 5 against 2. There is a sort of a bit of a balancing thing, because the pirates will know who the other pirates are, because everyone's going to close their eyes at the beginning of the game. The pirates are going to open their eyes and they'll be able to see who is who. So I suppose they've got an added advantage there. But statistically speaking, I suppose, I'm not a statistician by any stretch of imagination, I would imagine that the designers have looked into the probability of this happening, but it just feels as if the pirates have got it up against them. They're going to have to sort of lean on the cultist to do a bit of their dirty work, get it into the Kraken space and then move on, right? So it might be the case that the game is more difficult for the pirates to win. I suppose a lot of people like a challenge, right? But if you don't, you might find yourself getting a little bit frustrated with that. So is Feed the Kraken worth your time and bother today and in the future? So we are going to say yes, absolutely. This is one of the best social deduction games that we've played in a very long time indeed. In a tired and saturated space, Feed the Kraken manages to be both innovative and fresh whilst acknowledging its long lost relatives, yeah? This game is pure fun, right? It's got a simple rule set, it moves smoothly. There's going to be a lot of banter being thrown around the room. You're going to be changing the way that you think about other players throughout this game, yeah? It scales well. You've got a long and a short game. You've got game-breaking special abilities in this. Okay, you could argue that it is biased in favour of the sailors, but then I suppose that's balanced out with the fact that the pirates are going to know who the other pirates are, right? So if you're looking for a new approach to social deduction games that lies in that sweet spot between just a box of cards and a 4-hour camping holiday, then Feed the Kraken is definitely going to be the game for you. So there you go, that's Feed the Kraken. Remember, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to this channel with the like button and all that YouTube bullshit. I'll see you next time.